everybody out there in Internet Kingdom world, you guys are watching the All Tab Show here from California, coming at you live through the internet power.
What is wrong with you?
Should we just jump in and talk about things? Guys, last week I was accused of, in the comments, of not caring anymore, and that's not the case. I care too much is the problem. That is why last week's tech was a little shorter than normal. And this week's tech's going to be a little shorter as well. Because, you know why? We're giving away a freaking car. Right there it is. And we only have about a day or two left, guys. So you guys need to get over to the website and enter this freaking car contest right now. We have ADATA. They're going to be pitching in a 512 gigabyte SSD. Some of their brand new XPG version 3, DDR3. It's got the really fancy heat sinks on top right there. And we have the only blue version that's going to be available for a while. So we've got a custom blue version to match the Sapphire Vapor X R9 290X. We're going to put that in there. We've got the Fractal Design Node 804, the Newton R3 1000 watt power supply. We've got some crazy products from Mayflower Electronics, and they also help us out with the CPU and everything. They donated the CPU, but we've got the version 1s of their Fostex T50RP and also an Objective ODAP combo amp. So we're going to totally hook you guys up, and on top of that, we're giving you private internet access for 1 year. That's our VPN of choice around here, and a freaking car. So that's why things have been a little bit crazy around here. I've been really making sure that this car is in perfect condition for you guys. Yesterday, Wendell, I replaced the windshield for no reason. There was not a scratch on the windshield, but I replaced it. Is that a bit mental or what? I mean...
Have you been drinking the windshield washer fluid again?
You know what? You can't. It's always hard to keep me away from that. Ever since I discovered it as a child, I'm like, yeah, windshield washer fluid is like my thing. Whenever beer doesn't cut it, windshield washer fluid does. It's organic.
I'm going to have a banana split with chocolate, strawberry, and windshield washer fluid.
Here's the thing. So, you know, on the bottom of the windshield, I had this car in Florida when I was working at Tiger, and everything kind of just overheats. So around the bottom of the windshield, there was a little bit of chipping and dry rotting, you know, on the seal. And then the bottom of the windshield started to, you know, become like a bit of a frostier color just from the heat. You know, it makes it weird. And so I looked at it. I drove a long way to take it to a specialist, and they ripped off the windshield and put a new one on, and we're doing a couple other things just to make sure it's in really good shape for everybody out there. So just next week, somebody's going to win this thing, and I'm going to drive it to your freaking house. I think Josh from Fractal's coming with me. Maybe Thomas from ADATA, maybe not. And I think Ed is going to be coming with us from Sapphire, and we'll be hanging out at your house, drinking all your beer and eating all your food. So that's in the fine print there. You know, you win a car, but we get to pretty much raid your fridge. That's just part of it all. So sorry about that, guys. That's just what's going to happen. Next up on the list, Epic Pants. We have a new shirt that's going to be in like a day or two. It's the NSA backup, now offering free off-site data backup. That'll be available right about now-ish. So that's pretty cool. And also, we've got some tulip cups coming in. If you want to, if you're tired of the standard pint glasses or whatever, you can get a tulip snifter. It's pretty. All right, let's talk about what's going on in the tech world. This is kind of a follow-up. We talked about the case where some stuff was stored. This is NSA stuff. Some stuff was stored on a Microsoft server, and it was in, pardon me, in Ireland, right? So the DOJ is like, hey, we need that stuff that's on that you know, on that server that's in Ireland. And normally it's like, well, hey, it's in Ireland. That's international law. And they went and talked to a judge, and the judge is like, well, now the judge is saying like, well, you know what? The DOJ needs this, and their warrant/subpoena, so because somehow the warrant and subpoena became the same thing, kind of weirdly, they're saying, you know what? They deserve that data that's in Ireland. So how is this even possible? How is a court in the USA even able to say that their laws apply in Ireland? And how is a judge able to, you know, smack his gavel down and say that this is legal? I don't understand what's going on here. What are the implications for this on an international scale? I mean, are American cops going to be traveling abroad writing tickets on their vacations? Is this what's going to happen? Like, hold on a minute, you're jaywalking in France. Come here, you're going to have to pay some money to the American courts because you jaywalked. I mean, that's how insane this is. I don't know, Wendell, what do you make of this?
Okay, so even before we get into that, so let's think about like tax law and tax shelters and things like that. There are a lot of companies that move a lot of their dollars, a lot of their money overseas, and the tax man here in America would love to have access to that data. And historically, that data has been reasonably well protected, but there are court cases from a few years ago where they're eroding more and more and more of that to the point that it's like the numbered Swiss bank account that's super secret. More and more of that data is being shared with the federal government as well. So the U.S. really does believe that it has jurisdiction over the whole world. Now, in this case, it's Microsoft, and so Microsoft is an American company, and I think the reasoning is like if Microsoft can be made to produce records from this foreign server, they totally should. And I don't know if that's really legit. It doesn't pass the sniff test, like you sniff that, and it's something smells not quite right there, but then they did an end run around their own laws. And it's like, no, this is an administrative request. Oh, it's not really an administrative request. Let's treat it like a warrant or a subpoena. And it's like, wait, these things are not the same thing. You can't. that's like this orange is like a banana. No, this is not good. This is really bad.
Companies like Apple and Google have been getting away with this tax stuff for a long time by using offshore stuff. Do you think that this has implications, even though it's kind of a stretch? Do you think it has implications for them as far as the way that they avoid U.S. taxes?
Well, okay, so if this, an administrative, you have to understand that it's sort of a graduated response sort of a deal, and an administrative request is like the lowest tier thing. It's literally, you don't even have to be under any kind of suspicion or accused of wrongdoing. It can just be like, hey, we need that data, produce it. And in this specific case, I think they've got a little bit more to go on than just that. But if this follows suit, then there is nothing to stop them from making similar kinds of requests about company financial data. And so if you turn this around on its ear, and it's like, all right, then let's have these companies produce financial data for what they're doing overseas or what they're doing in numbered accounts, or these wealthy individuals for doing the same thing. This will get shut down overnight tomorrow. I mean, it won't even matter. But not only that, this kind of financial data, think about what this is going to do to American business abroad. Things are already shaky after the whole NSA backdoor thing. And so now we're in a situation where, the long arm of U.S. corporations is like, do you do business with an American company? You may be made to comply with American laws or American requests for information and have to put up with that level of headache, even if you do business in another country. A lot of companies are going to be like, no, let's just set up our operations in the EU. Let's set up our operations, overseas. Let's set up our operations in Asia and not even bother with America. So this one person, this is probably a career-ending mistake because businesses will be like, what are you doing? And they're not going to fund or do election or anything like that. It's convenient for them in this case, but I don't think that the businesses are going to sort of allow this to stand. And basically, businesses control the American government for the most part. So I don't think this is the fireworks from this is going to be interesting.
You're saying that we're going to be saved by the corporate control over the government this time?
Well, because it's basically a threat to American business interests abroad, and if for no other reason, this will be fixed because of that.
Well, Judge Loretta Preska, she's the one who presided over this case. She's already sort of stayed, pretty much stayed the execution on this one because Microsoft intends to appeal. And so she's like, all right, I think this, and we'll have to wait and see what the appeals court says. So nothing's really going to happen just yet, but I think the broader implication on an international stage is like, how is this going to work when you talk about like the EU and the countries they're in and their laws, because their privacy laws are actually a lot more strict, or is it stricter? I believe it's stricter, right? They're a lot stricter than what we have here in the USA. So, you're going to go over there, and then their governments are going to be like, oh, what are you guys actually doing here? Like, what is the meaning of this? And then that's going to have further implications again for the U.S. tech industry.
We haven't even gotten to the Fourth Amendment implications of this. So our Fourth Amendment is protection, theoretically, for citizens of citizens from unreasonable search and seizure by the government. And so we haven't even talked about that. This is just sort of armchair insanity. But this is really so insane that it is difficult to talk about objectively. I mean, no one agrees on what language means anymore. It's just spin. Like, no one will look at something and honestly say anything. And if we can't have a conversation where you and I are talking about the same thing, there's no way that we can possibly have any sort of rational discourse. It's irrational discourse. This is just, the level of insanity here is just mind-boggling.
Everything is worded in such a vague way with everything these days that they could turn it into anything they want to if they have the right lawyers and the right legal team and the right amount of money to throw at it. It's brilliant, isn't it? Anyway, speaking of insanity, let's take a look at BusinessInsider.com. I mean, God, this website is ridiculous. Anyway, Business Insider has blamed Edward Snowden for seriously damaging U.S. tech firms. They're saying that Edward Snowden's revelations have done irreparable damage to, the U.S. tech industry. And that's mind-boggling because all he did was say, hey, look, this is on fire. And now they're saying, oh, Edward Snowden started that fire. Like, what do you mean? He just pointed at the fire. He's a kid across the street that pointed at a fire, and now he's in jail for burning down a building. That's a very loose thing, but that's pretty much the idea here. But
I like the culture of blame. It's like, have you guys read The Emperor's New Clothes? Because it's like, we have Edward Snowden being like, hey, by the way, everyone in the entire world that uses any American technology is completely naked. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh God, we're naked. What's going on? And then it's like, he's a witch. Burn him.
But they were naked all along. It's like you guys have just been letting your stuff blow in the breeze and you didn't even know it, but now you know it. Shouldn't you be happy that you now know these things? I mean, really?
Some government shill firm has also said it's like, oh, terrorists have changed their communications pattern as a result of all these, revelations. And it's like, really? Really? I mean, is that what we're going to do? It's like, oh, the terrorists are winning. Really?
Yeah,
really?
Well, I know where they're all hanging out right now. They're all playing Call of Duty Ghosts. So the NSA, you guys need to start monitoring everyone, especially on Xbox One and PS4. That's where all the terrorists are now. They're using that to transmit data back and forth. So you guys really need to get those consoles locked down. Just letting you guys know that. A World of Warcraft, yeah, there's a few of them. Well, they're already monitoring World of Warcraft. That's like a legit thing, but I'm just like telling them what they need to be monitoring right now. All those, like your mom is at this and you can suck my whatever and hey girl, you've got a nice, all that stuff is code word for what they're going to do. So you guys just need to start, developing some ciphers to figure that out. Get to work on that and spend about $1 million of my tax dollars at least. Anyway, was that sarcastic enough? I don't know if it was.
I'm already into the next story, which is just like, it dovetails with this really nice because it's like the machine is eating itself at this point.
No, which story are we on now? I forgot. I've lost everything.
The CIA spying record on the congressional investigation of what the CIA had been up to.
Oh, right. We talked about this before. Of course, like Feinstein found out that the CIA was spying on them and had a huge fit, right? And the CIA's like, well, we weren't doing that. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe just a little bit. Maybe. And then they were like, stop it. And now the CIA, since they've been told to stop it, has done just the opposite and started spying on their emails and personal emails and even creating fake accounts and all that kind of stuff to trick them. So I'll let you take this away.
So it's not quite that, but it's so the senators, which is the American ruling class. Let me explain this for our international viewers. The Senate,
the aristocracy or whatever.
It's sort of the aristocracy of America. The normal American laws really do not apply to them. They are above the law. They generally operate outside the law. Things like insider trading and this sort of thing do not really apply to them. They are the landed gentry, the aristocracy. And, you generally don't mess with them. Otherwise, you're in for a world of hurt. So the CIA was doing some things, and the Senate was like, we should probably investigate that. And so the CIA used its vast spying apparatus to spy on the Senate that was investigating them and sort of feed them or manipulate them or whatever. And they came out a number of months ago. We covered it. And so the final report, quote unquote, on that came out. And so the extent and level of action that the CIA took was far beyond what was initially reported, and it is actually deeply disturbing. So if you read this and it's like, wow, this many people engaged in this. I mean, this was not like, one or two rogue actors. This was like an operation. And so if you look at it, it's just the most epic thing ever, because it's like, wow, the machine turned in on itself and there was this level of dysfunction. And if the machine wasn't trying to eat itself, we would have never known. So you can imagine if this type of thing is done on ordinary citizenry or, other citizens, because they don't matter. Those people are subhuman. We don't even care. If you're in Gitmo, I mean, whatever. So the whole way this is conducted and the whole attitude here is just really completely insane. On behalf of all other Americans, I'm sorry. I don't know who elected these people. I don't know who's in charge. I just make YouTube videos. I don't know.
What's the guy who said this? Sir something. Oh man, he made a really awesome TED talk about this, and you guys can say it in the comments. Sir, was it Lawrence Lessig? Not Sir.
Yeah, Lawrence Lessig.
He said that he made this really awesome video about how these guys get in power, and he's like, basically all the people with money have a pre-election where they give a whole bunch of money to certain candidates, and they basically pick the candidates that are allowed to run. So then we get to choose from their pre-screened group of people, and that's how they got in power in the first place. But I think it's entirely hilarious how they kick and scream when they are treated just the way they are treating the rest of the public. That's kind of funny to me. And you guys ready? Let's get out our tinfoil hats here. I'm not usually one for too much tinfoil hat wearing, but this is going to be fun. So the CIA is spying on them, right? And they're doing X, Y, and Z. Now, the CIA is spying on them, and they're getting some really juicy insider information. And they may be even getting some of this really juicy insider information on, I don't know, Obama even, or some of the president, the cabinet members, whatever. Now, all these senators and all that stuff, they all make these amazing promises, and then when they get into office, nothing ever happens. You know why nothing ever happens? Because they've been spied upon by the CIA and the NSA and the FBI and all these guys, and then they all come into their office on Monday afternoon after they're finished with their money brunches or whatever the hell they call them, and they say, listen, we've got all this interesting information about you and things that you like to do on the weekends here based upon your emails. We'll be happy to release that to Fox News, who is incredibly angry about this sort of activity, and they'll be happy to put it all over the internet. Or you could just follow these rules right here.
Y'all remember when we said that if this would be built, if this apparatus was allowed to be built, it would be misused? I feel like kind of reminding everyone, it's like, if this apparatus exists, it will be misused. And the other crazy thing is that there's two versions of the report. There's a classified version of the report. There's an unclassified version of the report. Obviously, we're reading the unclassified version of this, but the classified version of this is apparently much longer, and apparently much more damning things happened. Like, they used classified hacking tools to break into their email, and that was actually after the whole, like, hey, what are you guys doing? That part of it was actually after that. And so we don't know what the classified report says, but presumably it's even more insane. So it seems like it would be hard to have a functional government when these sort of things are in play.
But man, it sure is fun to watch. Not really. All right, let's I'm going to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted. Or we got anything else to go over? I don't think so. That's pretty much the end of that, right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Let's talk about Ford and GM. They're getting sued right now. And they're actually getting sued because some of their new cars and some of their new technology in the new cars allow you to basically record music that you're hearing on the radio and record straight to a little hard drive. This is an interesting case here. I guess we could almost liken this to the VCR, maybe in some ways. I don't know. I don't exactly know how to feel about this. I'm kind of gonna look for some of your comments and all that sort of thing. But it allows them to basically rip tracks that they're hearing straight to a jukebox system. Interesting. Yeah,
so it's really nothing more than a DVR for your car. You can time shift radio, and you can, rip CDs to a hard drive in your car. So we're talking, 1999 level technology here. And so, of course, someone's up in arms and somebody's suing somebody else because this is why we can't have nice things.
I mean, the thing that strikes me as odd here is, all this technology, you can do this on a computer in 1988 or whatever, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time, and you could do all this stuff on a computer. You could do it right now. I mean, someone right now could go out there and retrofit a car with a computer to do this. It's weird. Yeah, DVR for your car, but I don't know. Where is this going to go? Is anything going to happen with this? I've got a feeling that something is going to happen with this. It feels, for some reason, it just feels like there's going to be litigation and that Ford's going to lose. I don't know why I get that weird feeling, but I don't know.
It's like the audio industry is like, no, what if you rip a CD that you don't own? And it's like, this is like iTunes. I mean, iTunes will do this. Why is this not a problem for iTunes, but it is a problem when you're in your car? This sort of thing is just stupid. Just really stupid.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Verizon. They are throttling their unlimited data customers. And, they've been throttling the top 5 percentile when they're using, during peak hours, because these top 5 guys, man, they are just using too much of that unlimited data. Verizon, number one, first, you shouldn't oversell so much that it creates, network problems. And maybe, number two, you should spend some of that money you're making to upgrade your infrastructure. But here's the really crazy part about all this, and even the FCC has chimed in. So Verizon has rented the 700 megahertz broadband spectrum, right? And in that it says that they're not allowed to do anything as far as impeding customers' access to that spectrum. They get what they pay for. So that is what I really think is interesting about this. They are in direct violation of their rental agreement of that spectrum. That's going to be interesting.
And no one cared that could do anything about it, because that's just the way that it is. Meanwhile, consumers are like, blah, blah, blah. There's actually, it's not mentioned in the article, but there's actually an academic study that shows that the throttling is happening regardless of network congestion. So clearly it's not just about network congestion, it's also about control and rationing and this sort of thing. And so this is a problem. I believe the study, we had trouble finding the link, but there's a study that talked about how people that had an unmetered home connection would always try to be good about using Wi-Fi and not using their 4G because the 4G was rationed. But in situations where both their home connection was rationed and their wireless connection was rationed, it was like, oh no, they're both rationed. I don't know what's going on. But the throttling is not always about congestion. It's about control, because somebody looked at the spectrum usage and some other things and figured out that there wasn't really a lot of congestion yet, because not a lot of people are using that. Now, of course, if they don't upgrade their network for 10 years, of course congestion is going to be a problem, and that's sort of the issue here.
Yeah, there's some new technology we're going to be talking about in the hardware episode coming up in a day or so. That's pretty awesome. I guess I shouldn't even mention that, but fiber optic speed upgrades. Can't wait to talk about it. You guys can watch the Alt Tab show. We already talked about it over there. Yeah. Anyway, I'm so distracted right now because she's watching cooking videos and I'm starving. Why are you watching those cooking videos while I'm starving? Over there watching Cooking with a Dog. Anybody out there watch Cooking with a Dog? I'll send you a hamburger. I will mail you a hamburger. I'm serious. First person that emails me and says they watch Cooking with a Dog. And they have to actually reference something from the show. Anyway, back to this. The regular.
And now you've got 100,000 emails in your mailbox.
You'd email me at, don't email me at techsyndicate.com.
Just tweet.
Just tweet. Yep, tweet at Tech Syndicate. That's it. Tweet at Tech Syndicate. That's what I'll do. If anybody emails me, you're automatically disqualified because I'm already losing emails. I felt kind of bad about that today. I got up and I was like, man, there's 700 million emails and I've got 700 million things to do. I'm going to have to miss some of these emails. I feel bad. Sorry out there if you email me and I don't get back to you. I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the Comcast business right now. The FCC, I can't believe they actually spoke out about this. They've usually been silent but they said that this is not designed to be a loop, or this is not a loophole designed to enhance your revenue stream. It is disturbing to me that Verizon Wireless would base its network management, in quotes, on distinctions among its customers' data plans rather than on network architecture or technology. So they are in violation of their rental agreement, and do you think it's lip service, or do you think that the FCC is actually going to take some action and spank them a little bit? I think it's lip service,
no,
but that's me.
Yeah, Wheeler has demonstrated that he has no interest in actually doing anything that would be effective. Meanwhile, he wants to put on a good show, which is perhaps the most dangerous kind of politician.
Yeah, he is great. I mean, you put him in like a pair of tap shoes and give him a cane, and he's amazing.
Myself, I prefer the politicians that are so incompetent that it's really obvious to they have the Freudian slip where they accidentally say what it is that they're going to do. But you can at least read those politicians and sort of know what's going on. And it's like, yeah, we're going to just do all this shady stuff. And it's like, okay, well, at least you're honest with me.
They're like, we are here to help the American people better eat babies. I mean, better get jobs. Those are the ones I like, like George Bush. He was great.
It's funny because like when you watch Wheeler, like if you ever read the Darkly Dreaming Dexter books, like the actual books, the text that's used to describe Dexter, it's like he's got this this lizard component in his brain, and he sort of hears like a sort of a low sort of cooing or purring or something like that. At least I have that's in my head for some reason. I don't actually know if that's actually for real from that. It's all a blur. But when he speaks, it's like I sense that in the background, like the sort of lizard, like almost like a lizard purring in the background. And if you look for that in Wheeler's speeches and when he's looking around and his sort of facial expressions, you'll be like, oh my God, he is doing that.
There are plenty of slow motion videos that show his lizard eyes on the internet. I love it. They always do that, and then they put the music in the background. It's always like, and you're like, oh God, they're all reptiles. It's all true. I think I've done it. I think I've just discredited our show enough that that the NSA is going to take us off the watch list. They're like, oh, they're those reptilian freaks. Just leave them alone. Lump them into the same category as that guy in Texas. What's his name? I don't remember his name.
I feel like Weird Al wrote Foil just for us.
No, it's for that idiot in Texas. What is his name? The guy that does the conspiracy show, and he always gets on and yells at people on. I don't know what his name is. But someone said, hey, do you watch this guy? And I was like, no. Anyway, never mind. Someone's going to know it in the comments. Let's talk about Comcast for a minute. They've done something else that's very interesting. They have moved to swallow up Charter Communications. Charter in New England, it seems like they're a different company than the Charter that most people have to deal with in other parts of the country, like the Midwest and that sort of thing. In the Midwest, there's terrible data bandwidth caps, there's all kinds of throttling, and there's just really high prices. But in the New England area, Charter doesn't seem to have the same limitations, and the speeds are quite fast. However, Comcast looks like they're going to be swallowed. This is a really convoluted thing. We've got like Time Warner agreeing to buy so-and-so's customers. It's just like they're shifting customers around to make sure that they cannot compete. It's like, oh, you're encroaching on our territory. We're going to give you 1 million customers, and we'll take 1 million customers for you. And now it's like, oh, well, Comcast is going to swallow this part of the country, and they're going to take over this entire area. But they're never working in the same markets at the same time. But Comcast is going to be swallowing them, starting in Worcester, Massachusetts. The changes are already rolling out. And another thing that's interesting here, I always look for the key words here. Is like, Comcast has said everything is going to be just the same at first. And they always
except for the 5% price hike.
Yeah, well, they even said even the prices are going to stay the same initially. So that's exactly what I'm seeing here, and all the verbiage is like everything's going to be just fine, and we are going to make sure that we fulfill our contractual obligations initially. At first, and other things like that. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what's going on. It's almost confusing, but it looks like they're getting swallowed, and I'm not sure how much more of Charter is going to get swallowed. But if Comcast continues this trend and starts to, I'm not on the screen. If Comcast continues this trend and continues to swallow up bits and pieces of Charter, and then if things go through and they're able to buy Time Warner, it's going to be pretty much Comcast and CenturyLink.
It's kind of weird. There's a couple border counties here on this map that don't have any cable provider, and it's like, what's that about? What's that story? I'd love to hear from somebody that's in one of those counties that has quote unquote no cable provider, because Massachusetts is fairly populous throughout the state. I thought
it's interesting the way the population works, because you've got Boston. And then you got Worcester, and it's like everyone lives there. And then you go out into Western Mass, and you're basically in the middle of the woods. There's like nothing there. I've been lost there a few times. It is not fun because there's not even lines in the road in most of the places in that part of the world.
These are like
it's really sparse. So it's population, nobody.
These counties is like north central.
Yeah,
like that's around north central.
I don't know. That's close to like population. I thought. I mean, you start getting up close to New Hampshire and Vermont there, and that's kind of woodsy. But around Worcester, there should be a pretty big population. I don't know what's going on. There's got to be somebody that provides cable there. I can't imagine an entire county with. I keep taking you off the screen or putting me off the screen. I can't imagine an entire county with no cable. That's just weird. I don't know.
That is weird. I mean, maybe is that a municipal fiber community? That would be amazing.
Is that what
it looks like they've got? Well, that's what they've got. This municipal electric company. They've got that labeled. So I wonder what things are like there. Is it amazing, like in Tennessee?
I don't know. Maybe I should drive over there and find out what's going on in those places, and knock on some doors, and just be like, "Hey, man, who's your provider?" Because I don't know if we'll get any straight answers by calling these companies. They're just going to be like, "We do not service that area. We do not talk about that area." Yeah. So, speaking of being disgruntled with Comcast, this is actually interesting. A Comcast customer pulled a gun on a technician because he was, had some objections on his bill. And something, I'll say this for the Comcast technicians, a lot of those guys that come out to your houses in a truck or a van or whatever, and help you install your router and help you get your connection turned on. A lot of those guys do not directly work for Comcast. They are usually either self-employed contractors or they're contractors for small companies. So if they come to your house and they give you a Comcast contract that you do not like, do not point a gun at their heads. They are largely uninvolved. They are just doing a 9-to-5 job and absorbing hatred from you guys all day. And a lot of them know it. When the guy came and installed the Comcast box in the last place I lived, I was like, dude, I'm running a VPN. He goes, I do not blame you, and I hope that there's nothing in here recording what I'm saying. So,
most people don't realize that the evil conglomerated cable companies are basically employing an army of underpaid technicians to operate, owner-operator their own vans to do things. And so they're typically abused on the receiving end of the customer service insanity and managed by a company that's generally clueless, has no idea what's going on, and doesn't even have a proper work order or inventory system.
All right, let's move on. You just mentioned municipal fiber and all that sort of thing. So let's move on and just mention Chattanooga, Tennessee one more time, because I always sing the praises of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm still going to sing the praises of Chattanooga, Tennessee. What they did was, a lot of the big companies were like in that area, and they're like, you know what? We don't think the customers here want or care about fast internet. And so the municipality of Chattanooga was like, well, we think they do. So we're going to spend some odd millions of dollars installing our own fiber infrastructure. And guess what happened? Everything exploded, and shops exploded, and a lot of the old warehouses started turning into bars and cafes and tech startups and all kinds of crazy things like that. And they're offering gigabit connections all over the place. They've got a population of 170,000, and a lot of them can get that gigabit speed. So this is a terrifying prospect to a lot of the powers that be, and they are doing something about it. And this is what we really have to watch for. I mentioned this on Alt-Tab just a little while ago. If you are in a community, you need to get involved. You need to start going down to your local meetings. You need to find out what they're doing when it comes to high-speed internet, and you need to show them Chattanooga as an example of what happens when you lay infrastructure. You attract a smart user base to the city. You attract new companies to the city, young tech startups and that sort of thing. And then, of course, they need nice places to eat, because they're not going to want to eat it like some crappy Applebee's or whatever. They're going to want to eat it a more refined experience, because they're tech startups, and that's what they do. They wear rolled up pants and sandals and go to fancy, I don't know what they do. I haven't been to San Francisco in a while, so I don't know what it's like anymore. But the problem right now is that the ISPs have been lobbying the Republicans in Tennessee, and they have voted to stop the spread of this terrible disease known as fiber. So they've pretty much, right now it's passed. All the Republicans passed it through the House, and the Senate in Tennessee is probably going to vote this down, but maybe not if the lobbyists get to them in time. So they could effectively stop the spread of fiber, and that's really terrifying that these companies are able to use basically the local governments as a business utility to shut down competition. That's what it's all about. It's about shutting down competition, and they really don't want local municipalities to be competition, because the municipalities are typically in favor of whatever's best for their communities and whatever's best for their local user base there. Right? It's what happens when you get local stuff going on.
Listen. I always like math. Like it's like it's a couple of guys just hot air on YouTube. Let's break down that math. So, Chattanooga cost $330 million, servicing 170,000 subscribers over 600 square miles. What does that break down to? Well, it breaks down to about $2,000 per subscriber one-time cost. Average cable bill in America, $120, $130 a month. That's less than a 2-year payback in terms of infrastructure cost. Now, is that realistic? You've got overhead costs of operating the business and things like that. Sure. The fiber can carry television, data, phone, other services that we haven't, that will remain undefined. If the average subscriber is paying $100 a month and 50% of that is going to the infrastructure cost, we're talking about a payback time of less than 5 years.
All right.
There's no bank on earth that would not bankroll that. I mean, like in terms of like, I need a bank loan for my business idea. 5-year payback, captive audience. Businesses that banks would be like, yes, here, do it. 5-year payback, and then 100% profit after that. That's crazy. And it won't be 100% profit, but it'll be close.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about this is this is fiber. This is not copper, and we know that copper can do ridiculous speeds over short distances, but fiber can do ridiculous speeds over long distances, and this is also a 100-year infrastructure. So once you lay it, it's going to be there, and if you want to upgrade it, you do not have to spend another $330 million. You have to spend maybe $1 to $2 million, 10 years down the road to upgrade the piece of technology on each end, because that's what matters. What really is able to make the speed faster is, the box of technology on one end or the other. You change out the routers, the really fancy routers on either end, and all of a sudden you've got much faster speeds. It's basically like going from a 10100 router to a gigabit router. That's all there is to it.
Now it's it could be the case that the math is probably not super perfect. 170,000 subscribers may not translate into 170,000 accounts, but again, captive audience. If you take it one step further and the municipal organization says, look, having 17 different companies maintain 17 different sets of infrastructure is dumb and a waste of resources, use this infrastructure to deliver services, as has already been the case with the public telephone system since Title II was invented, that Title II thing that we're always talking about, then it starts to make a lot more sense, and it starts to really be a 100-year infrastructure. I mean, when a utility leases space on a telephone pole, it is typically a 10 or 20-year lease. And so these are 10 or 20-year, business operations. For a power company or a natural gas company or something like that, those bank loans, those are amortized over 20, 30, 40 years in some cases. And so a 20-year bank loan on this type of investment is not really unusual. But with this, we're looking at a 5-year payback. If you also step back at the 96 Telecommunications Act, we've got a great video on the 96 Telecommunications Act. You should go watch it. If you talk about this in terms of tax savings, we can talk about that. So since 1996, telecommunications companies in aggregate have saved about $5,000 per citizen, and that tax savings was in order to deploy a fiber optic network like the one we see in Chattanooga. And so here they've deployed it for $330 million at a cost of a little less than $2,000 per person. So it seems like they've done it for half the cost of the tax savings, and we don't even have the fiber network nationwide for this. So, clearly it's possible. It's like, oh, it's impossible. We can't do it. And clearly it is.
What you said just made me so sad right now. When you actually look at the math behind things, the language that controls the universe, it makes me so sad. Oh, God. You know what else makes me really sad? And I actually canceled my Sprint account yesterday. This was one of the main reasons I canceled it, but I also canceled it because they do not support the 1+1. But I've been wanting to move away from Sprint for a long time, but their Virgin Mobile, that's like their month-to-month plan or their prepaid plan, they have gone ahead and just thrown away net neutrality and just said, you know what, we're going to give you guys unlimited access to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest. You pick one of those awesome networks that you guys sit on all the time, And on top of your bill, if you pay an extra $12, you can have unlimited to those services. And if you want, unlimited all 4 of those, well, you pay the $12 plus an additional 10, and then you get unlimited all 4 of those. Plus, if you want to give us an extra $5, you guys can pick a music streaming service and just stream for that all the time. So here it is, the first actual tiered plan that charges extra depending on the content that you want. Complete discrimination over the packets that are flowing through your connection.
So let's break out that math again. Hang on.
Here it goes.
All right, so let's assume 128 kilobit MP3, so that's about 1 megabyte per minute. Let's say that's a little on the high side, but all right, that's fine. 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. That's 1.4 gigabytes a day times 30 days in a month on average. Let's say that's 43 gigabytes a month.
If you're playing this nonstop.
If you're playing it nonstop now, so let's actually say that you're going to stream 8 hours a day.
That's a lot. That's like someone who owns a hair salon and just leaves it streaming off of their phone instead of using the internet. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
That's only 400. That's only 480 megabytes a day at 128 kilobit. Now, are they going to do 64 kilobit? I don't know. Let's say they're going to do 64 kilobit MP3s, and I mean, I'm not even really into music, and 64 kilobit is tough for me to swallow. So, I mean, let's conservatively say on the low end, that's going to be actually 200 megabytes a day. And that's only, 8 hours a day, low quality, not really a big deal. And let's say 5 days a week, not 7. So we're talking about 4 gigabytes. And that's $5 a month. But a 5 gigabyte plan is like, what, 20?
Yeah, if you want, that's like for everything you're using. But this gives you those things on top of all that. But data bandwidth caps already break my brain as it is, but this on top of the data bandwidth caps on top of the regular subscription really breaks my brain. Go ahead.
So what I would want to do, and I would want force of law to make it so that I can do this, is find the thing that uses the most bandwidth that costs the least. And I don't know if that's streaming music or Facebook or whatever plan that happens to be, but if streaming music, I would think it's probably streaming music. If I can stream unlimited, and it only costs $5, and that means that I can stream, 4 gigabytes a month for $5, then the data cost should be that cost at all times, period. Because data is data. If it costs 10 cents to deliver streaming during business hours, or whatever, how that breaks down. If it costs $5 to deliver 4 gigabytes of streaming during business hours in a typical month, then I should be able to use that data, that 4 gigabytes of data, for anything, not just music streaming.
Right. So with that algorithm, you've essentially figured out what it would cost them, or not even what it would cost them, but what they can realistically charge and make a profit on that data.
Yeah, so this is evidence of shenanigans. This should be used by some lawyer in a lawsuit to be like, wait, if I use my water for spaghetti, it's going to cost an extra 10 cents a gallon. But if I use water to fill my pool, it's going to cost 25 cents extra a gallon. And if I shower with water, that's going to be, an extra 2 cents a gallon.
You can't go into a courtroom and say all that stuff together, because all you're going to get back is, what the hell does spaghetti have to do with swimming pools? That's what you're going to get back from the gray-haired people that run this stuff. Yeah, it's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, and then the headlines will be funny too.
There is a certain poetry in saying that data is like water. It really is. I mean, if water replenishes the body, data replenishes the mind. I don't know, something pithy. we need. I want that on a shirt. I don't know, something pithy with a dash Wendell. I don't know, something pithy. That might actually be a good shirt, I'm thinking over here. So I'm gonna plug the shirts one more time before we leave. And guys, pick up the Zweihander albums if you don't have them already. I've almost got the next one released, and I like to. I kind of segment things in my head whenever we get donations. Wendell, like if I sell a bunch of Zweihander stuff, I'm like, okay, I got a bunch of Zweihander stuff coming in, so I'll allocate that to how much time I'm going to spend on the next album. And then I also did something else on the website this week that I didn't even mention yet, but I put this thing on the side of the website, help us with documentaries. So
the new pitch-in, and that money, whatever money we get in that pitch-in, is going to be kept completely separate from the tech or from the tech support money that you guys have been donating to help us out with the site, which is awesome. And also it will be kept separate from any other monies to spend on stores and that sort of thing. So whatever money is there, we'll use it specifically on whatever documentary we're working on. So go ahead and take a look at that there. I thought that was a cool way to kind of segment it out, because a lot of times if you like, a lot of times with documentaries, if you ask a sponsor for to help you out with a documentary, they're going to be like, great, well, let's just make it the whatever experience documentary. I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're doing a documentary, and you can come along with us if you like. And they're like, oh no, it's got to be a documentary about us coming with you. And so
it's fun.
It's difficult.
We could actually talk about that a little bit, because we actually have done a little bit of homework here. We're trying to, organize and dot our I's and cross our T's and things like that. So the internet has created a downturn in the newspaper industry, and there are a lot of fantastically intelligent, like super intelligent, just crazy awesome writers and like almost investigative journalists, people that actually have journalistic credentials and not just a couple of yahoos goofing off on the internet. And we would love to hire somebody like that to help us with stories and help us with stuff that feeds into the documentaries. But, bottom line, those people are talented. They are highly educated, highly intelligent, very adaptable into a lot of jobs.
And expensive.
Yes, that translates to expensive. I mean, we're talking, we would probably need like $40,000 to $60,000 a year of income earmarked for those people to hire somebody here in America to do that, to help us with that. They're going to need a travel budget. They're going to need some other stuff like that. But man, the stuff that we could uncover with the 96 Telecommunications Act, the interviews and stuff like that they could do. If you guys would like to see us go more journalistic, that's what we're going to need to do it. But we're going to need more subscribers. We're going to need more pitch in. It's going to be on a whole other level of crazy.
Yeah, and I've got a few other documentary ideas as well that I'd like to work on, so it'll be used just for whichever one we're going to work on, and they'll all be crazy, and every single one of them is going to be something that gives back to the community. I've got that one secret idea that I'm not even sure if I can talk about it, but it involves a trip to Asian factories to produce things and document things behind the scenes. It's probably too much to say, though. It's secret. But that would be also, and then once we're done, we'd have something to give back to the community. So Kickstarter is a thing too. We could do that, but I don't know. I like building our house on our own land, if you know what I mean.
I like the idea of not relying on Kickstarter for a salary of a semi-permanent employee, especially someone who is helping us write content and helping us organize our thoughts and helping us expose this kind of thing. TechCrunch, I think, ran a Kickstarter to help us hire a journalist, and I thought that the way that they did that was pretty well executed, but I think they fell short of their goal. I think that was TechCrunch, but I'm not sure. But we could do it sort of surreptitiously and with tinfoil hats and might have sort of a different approach than they would.
That seems to be our style. Anyway, you know what style I need right now? I need sandwich. That was bad. I'm hungry. All right, so I'm going to go eat, and I need to put this online.
I'm going to have some tandoori chicken because, tandoori chicken.
That's kind of funny. I was getting ready to make a curry chicken sandwich. Interesting. I don't know why that's interesting, but it is. Anyway, so I'll see you guys on the internets. They're scary tubes that are out there, and we're helping to keep them free. So, yeah, see you guys later.